Good evening. My name is Greg Robin Smith, and I am the founder and the managing director of the Washington Shakespearean Festival. And we have plans for doing a very majorly complex, intricate, special effects laden introduction to Shakespeare and the works, the times, the methods. But this is not that. This is a very simple, straightforward, and brief collection of videos and an invitation for you to write in with questions that we can then address. Um, I've been working in Shakespeare for most of my life. I've tried examining not only the works themselves, of which there are many, and this is just one of the many collections that are out there. I think I hurt myself. And I love the works. I love teaching about the works and about the person. I want to make this fun. It's now, of course, March, the Ides of March 15th, which is mentioned in Julius Caesar. And because of the coronavirus outbreak, there are a lot of students at home who may have homework to do about Shakespeare. We're also doing a companion series of these videos about Benj Franklin. Benj, that's what we call him, Benj Franklin, which is something else that we do programs on. And also for students and also the parents who may be going crazy, going, what do I do with my kids? They're interested in this. I don't really know. There are, of course, many different references, many different programs. There are lots of different video versions and online streaming versions of various of Shakespeare's plays. But what we're going to do, since Washington Shakespearean Festival likes to take apart the plays and the essences, who the characters are, the times that they were written, and kind of everything down to the quill. How did Shakespeare physically write the lines out? And looking at those type of things, that hopefully this will be a companion to that which is already out there. Of course, there's podcasts like Aaron Ziegler's Chop Bard, which is in your ear productions, and or just Chop Bard. Look that up in your podcast delivery. And dozens of other programs. There are, of course, Shakespeare performing arts groups, such as ours, although we do mostly this type of stuff media right now. But there's also Seattle Shakespeare, if you're here, and about 8 other touring companies like Last Leaf and Bainbridge Island and more. If you're elsewhere in the country or around the world, there's probably a Shakespeare Festival near you. If you're in California, dozens. Of course, Oregon has the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And then there's Utah and Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival, which I've been to. Staunton, Virginia's American Shakespeare Center, which was the first Jacobean or enclosed small theater. Seats about 400 people. And that's Shakespeare had a Jacobean theater called the Blackfriars that he moved into and wrote a lot of his later plays in and for, since they're dealing with a smaller audience, much more introspective, etc. And of course, your library, when it's open again, has a bunch of the internet, etc. So you can examine the works of Shakespeare. What this series is going to really talk about is Shakespeare, the person, the struggling artist, and about the world in which Shakespeare was writing in and writing for. There is sometimes a concept that and again, I hurt myself to bring you that all these works, all these pages of stuff here, was kind of written by somebody who just sat down one day and kind of like Hemingway just sat in front of their quill pen reservoir and bled onto their page and just wrote out these works. And I don't believe that's the case at all. Shakespeare was like a TV writer today, a movie writer. He was cranking out this stuff to make money, to please the audience at the time. They had the original theaters, which was a fairly new art form. Really, live theater in anywhere near London had been outlawed for most of the early days of England until about the time of late Henry VIII and around the middle of the 1500s. And Shakespeare was born in 1564. And so these plays started to be was something more than just what would be done by small little traveling groups or very very private performances done, or by the church doing things. And finally, theaters were able to be built, and it was legal, although still fairly much frowned upon. But people would come to these performances in the middle of the day, give up close to a day's wages to even just stand, be at the groundlings, and watch these plays. So they had to be very entertaining, had to be things that people had an interest in seeing, had to keep them coming back, telling their friends. And this is what Shakespeare was writing for. Very much Shakespeare. This book, I'm not going to pick it up a third time because I'm old. This book is a collection of a collective effort. And then we'll go into later about the controversy over could Shakespeare have actually written these works, and I'll be happy to give my opinion. He did. And my backup for that, in other words, why I think that's quite likely he did. But I believe that they were a collaborative effort, and that they involved the other actors that he was writing for, because he wrote pieces for particular actors, I believe. And about the times, again, what other people were doing, other playwrights, what other entertainments there were. And I believe that Shakespeare was a person looking to make money and do something which fed his soul, but really to make a living to support his family back in Stratford-upon-Avon, and to secure for himself a good business venture, because he was part owner of the company that he wrote for. So if the plays were popular, he made money that way as well. This was not just a lone artist working in the garret to write the things that just pleased him, or that he just needed to say. He was working involved in the audience. He took feedback from his playwrights. He was based on sources of the time, Holingsed's history, the things that he learned in school, the old tales, Julius Caesar, taken from other plays, reworking plays like Henry VI parts 1, 2, and 3. He took plays that were already written and kind of jazzed them up a bit, and sometimes writing new pieces. Sometimes his pieces, I'm sure, got rewritten. We'll also be discussing some of his other works, some of his long-form plays, and of course his sonnets. So I'm hoping that this will intrigue you. Again, I'm happy to have a list here about 5 different introductory topics that we're going to be talking about. And if you have questions, or just if you're doing some homework and you have a particular question, please ask. I'll try and address it. Again, this initially was brought about because of some discussion of kids being locked out of school, and what if they need some information? Well, I'll be here, and I'll try and be here for you. We all need to work together. We are a village, and it takes a village to create a civilization. It's not run from any one person. Shakespeare was not just one person. Queen Elizabeth was not just one person. An amazing person, true. But even she needed the parliament, the armies, and the people slopping in the middle of the streets. So, sweeping up the garbage and emptying the chamber pots. We need everybody. I will state that even if you really don't have much interest in Shakespeare, I can understand that stuff. It's all just a bunch of gobbledygook. The influence really is important. It's like I talked to a couple who've never seen Star Wars. I have no interest in seeing it. Well, I think people should see it because it changed the world. It changed the world of movies, of entertainment, of how people approach science fiction. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's influenced countless things. Well, Shakespeare has done the same. It's influenced a lot of our culture, a lot of our expressions, our language, new words brought in, and his playwriting technique still influences playwrights and movie producers today. Not only doing Shakespeare, but also influencing other new scripts on other things. Remember, this was a new art form at the time, playwriting. This whole idea of putting on plays for the public was a new thing. And so he was inventing along with everybody else. And they were basing things on classic plays like of Aeschylus and Euripides, and some classic Greek scholars and playwrights that he learned of in school. And some of the plays from the Middle Ages, Gammergurt and Needle, Everyman, and such. And they're pulling from all these different things to produce these things. So, so the business of Shakespeare is quite impressive. Multi millions of dollars are passed hand to hand. Oregon Shakespeare Festival has well over $100 million in economic impact on the state of Oregon every year. Um, and almost every state and continent in the world except Antarctica has a Shakespeare festival in it. So it's important, and if you have an interest in theater, it is still good training. The language, piecing together your character, pulling out information from the bare black and white lines on the page, how to make them real, and because he incorporated a lot of characters that you still know today. I still find Iago's, Lear's, Cordelia's, Regan's, Ariel, Puck, Oberon, Titania, Henry V, Henry VI, Bolingbroke's, Princess Margaret. They're all there, and they're all here today. And understanding Shakespeare will help you recognize the current machinations of our world. I believe very much that Shakespeare is important, as well as his fellow playwrights, that the works are important. But we're going to be focusing not so much a play-by-play description. There are lots of places out there you can get information on them. Again, the podcast Chop Bard I recommend highly, by my friend Aaron Ziegler. He actually goes through every line of the plays. He's coming up to a 200th episode, and they're free online. And where Washington Shakespeare Festival is proud to be one of his sponsors. So I encourage you to go listen to that if you want to have a piece by piece, line by line explanation in a very fun way, and very understandable way. He's a very good person to go to. We're going to be talking about the plays as a thing, and as a thing that someone mastered and created, rather than just, this is the play. I want to examine the time they were written, the person, what you have to go through, the matter of constructing a piece, the considerations that he might have had, what iambic pentameter does to a playwright, or does for a playwright. And I'm hoping that this way of examining it in bits and pieces, kind of like looking at a recipe for a meal that you want to create. You look at all the different ingredients. Well, you could serve this plate of whatever wonderful, delicious dish is being given you, and you may eat and go, that's fantastic. But if you have an interest in what goes into it, you look at the recipe, and you look at the foods, and the chickens, what type of chickens did produce these particular eggs that you put into the dish, where what type of cow produced the egg, the milk that produced the cheese that you're using, etc. This is what I'm really interested in, is kind of the nuts and bolts of how this thing was constructed. What motivation did he have? Where was he pulling from? Who was he trying to please? Because all of this happens because of a reason, of a decision, and of influence. Thank you very much. I'm hoping this makes some sense. 14 minutes. We're going to try and keep into that each time. Fairly well.